Okay, let's look at citation number five. And citation number five, once again, I'm not quoting any scholar directly. I'm just giving an overall description of what happened. In this case, the Union Army occupied Brownsville in November of 1863. So I'm kind of painting with a broad brush, and just offering kind of a descriptive narrative of the events. So footnote five. Now let's go to footnote five on page 244, and you'll see footnote five. It comes from a book by Stephen Townsend called "The Yankee Invasion of Texas." And again, what I'm doing there, I'm telling my reader, hey, if you're interested in this event, if you're interested in the Union Army's occupation of Brownsville in November of 1863, there's a really good book on it. It's by a guy named Stephen Townsend. It's called The Yankee Invasion of Texas. And if you want more information on this, go ahead and check out this book. So, as historians, as scholars, as I said before, we need to give our colleagues help. When we talk about certain kind of incidents, the Union and occupation of South Texas, it's not common knowledge. For instance, you wouldn't really have to cite, Lincoln gave the Gettysburg Address. Okay, you don't have to cite that. That's common knowledge. Or Pearl Harbor happened on December 7th, 1941. That's common knowledge. You don't have to cite that. But if you're talking about more obscure historical events, you have to offer some kind of citation so that your reader can have a sense of where they can find more information on this event. So in footnote number five, I haven't made an argument. I've just offered a description of an event, the Union occupation of South Texas in November of 1863, and I'm telling my reader again, think of endnotes and citations, footnotes, all that. Think of them as dialogue. Basically, what I'm saying to my reader, hey, if you're interested in this subject of the Union occupation of Texas in 1863 November, take a look at this book. I'm not going to talk about it much more, but this person, this Townsend person, talked about it in great detail. Okay, so let's go to footnote six here. And this is where I talk about the Gettysburg Address. And let's see here. It's funny, I just said that you didn't have to cite the Gettysburg Address. I do cite the Gettysburg Address, or I offer citation for it, but it's kind of interesting. So look at footnote six. By the way, when in doubt, cite something. If you're not sure whether or not you should cite something, go ahead and cite it, because you'll never get in trouble for oversighting, and you can always just take the citation out. So when in doubt, oversight. If you're wondering whether you should cite something or not cite something, the rule of thumb, 100% of the time, go ahead and cite it. You'll never get in trouble for oversightation. And if you've oversighted, all you have to do is eliminate it and you're good to go. Okay, so when in doubt, always give a cite. Now, what's interesting about citation number six is that it comes from an internet source, which is the Avalon project. And I'm not going to go deep into it. I'll just point it out that protocols are being established now for internet sources. The internet's still relatively new, but by 2019, we have some protocols now where our fellow scholars can double check us. For most of my career, really the first half of my career, there was no internet, and it was all text. There's always a text, something you could actually hold in your hand, right, and look at. Well, of course, more and more now, there's a lot of stuff online. And as we'll talk about over the course of the semester, scholars have slowly developed protocols in order to cite online sources for the same reasons that you would cite a text, just to make sure that the person is not making up their data. And number two, to send other scholars in the direction of the topic that you're studying in case they're interested in studying it themselves or they want to know more about it. Okay, so I think we finally have a simple one. Footnote 7, which is 225, I quote the Chicago Tribune and footnote. I did it again. You're just going to have to live with me. I say footnote, I mean citation, okay? And in this case, it's an endnote, so I apologize, but you're just going to have to show compassion for me. Happily, endnote 7 is very easy. It's just a direct quote from the Chicago Tribune. Now, you might notice something. I don't have to quote the page number from the Chicago Tribune, thank God, or the title of the article. I can just put the newspaper. And this is one of the tricks of the trade of historians. I don't have to give the exact page numbers. The Chicago Tribune was probably like 15 pages at this time. But when it comes to citing newspapers, all you have to do is give the title of the newspaper and the date the article appeared. You don't have to give the page number of the article. And these days, our search engines are so powerful that you can pick up the page number pretty quickly. Now, that's very, very different with monographs and with journal articles. You absolutely have to put the page number. You do not have to put the page number for newspapers. Okay, so let's see here. That's number A7. Okay, now we're going to do, let's see, that's 7. Now I'm looking for number 8. Okay, number 8 is in the first full paragraph of page 225. And it reads, the recent generation of historians who situate the U.S. Civil War in a transnational framework. Okay, I'm not going to bore you with what that means, but basically, I think you can tell from the context that I'm saying that there's a group of historians that are looking at the Civil War from a global perspective. And among these people is my mentor, Thomas Bender from NYU. So I'm just kind of painting with a broad brush. But if you look at footnote 8, you'll see, okay, I've given 2 examples of historians that are looking at the Civil War within this broader international framework. One of them is Tom Bender, my advisor from NYU. Another one is someone that I've worked closely with, a man, a really terrific historian by the name of Don Doyle. As with footnote 1, I'm just telling my reader, I haven't quoted anything, but I'm just saying, hey, if you're interested in these historians that are looking at the Civil War a little bit differently, they're looking at it from a transnational point of view, check out Bender, check out Doyle. These are the 2 standard, these are the 2 kind of top of the line, top shelf historians looking at this subject. And so once again, among scholars with footnote 8, it's again a dialogue. The scholar might be wondering, okay, what scholars are looking at the Civil War transnationally? And I'm saying, hey, look at Bender, look at Doyle, look at these 2 books in particular. And that's what I suggest that you look at, okay? Okay, so we'll just look at 1 or 2 more. Okay, so that is number 8. Now let's look at footnote number 9. That's in the same paragraph. It's at the end of that paragraph, and the clause is overlooked in the rush from an intertwined 18th century Atlantic world to a 20th century U.S. dominance. And I quote a historian named Gregory P. Downs, who's somebody I know. He works at UC Davis, a very, very good historian. He's been very helpful to me. And I really like this quote. And note it's a long quote. I'm not going to go into the historiography of it, why I use it. I'm just going to talk about citation now. So what I've done is this guy, Greg Downs at UC Davis, a friend of mine, has written an article, and I found a sentence in the article very useful. So I quoted that sentence in my article, okay? And that's what footnote 9 is. So let's turn to footnote 9. So what I've done and this is an example of quoting from or citing from an article. So I've quoted Greg Downs, I've quoted a sentence from this article. Now I'm telling my reader exactly where you can find that article. And the article is called The Mexicanization of U.S. American Politics. It appeared in the American Historical Review in April 2012 on page 408. Okay, so whenever you quote from a monograph or a primary evidence or a journal, you always have to offer a cite 100% of the time. You have to offer a cite. So I've quoted Greg Downs, and I quoted him actually at great length. And if my reader is interested, they can go, "Oh, Greg Downs, that's a really interesting quote. I wonder where that came from." They can turn to Citation 9 in Note 9, and they can see that it's an article that came out in 2012. It came out in the American Historical Review. It was written by Greg Downs, and it's called The Mexicanization of American Politics. And if they want to find the exact quote, they go to page 408. Okay, so unlike newspapers, when you quote from a journal article in a monograph, you have to give the page number. So it's on page 408. Now, once again, with the next site where I say see also Greg Grandin, I haven't quoted Grandin in my article, but once again, I'm basically saying to my reader, hey, if you're interested in this topic, there's another article that I want to suggest to you that you might find useful. So take a look at this Grandin article. I didn't quote it. I'm not going to talk about it again. But you might, if you're interested in this topic, go ahead and take a look at this. So again, think about endnotes and citations as dialogue, where scholars are talking to other scholars. They're not only proving that the data points that they're using and the quotes that they're using actually exist, but they're also saying to other scholars, hey, I've done a lot of research on this and you might find this interesting. You might want to take a look at it if you're interested in Mexico and the United States in the 1860s. You don't have to, but you might find it interesting. Now, when it comes to Downs, though, it's mandatory that I cite him where the article, the name of it, where it appeared, so and the page number it appeared on, because my reader needs to go exactly to that quote. And then of course the other thing is they might find other things in the article interesting as well. But anytime you quote something directly, it's mandatory that you have to tell your reader exactly where you found it. And when it comes to monographs and when it comes to journal articles, you're going to also have to give the page number. Okay, so that's a kind of a quick orientation to citation, and we'll talk more about this over the next couple of weeks.